This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at the BatmanUniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
I'm back, baby! I'm back!
The boys are back in town!
Officially turned around, guys. We are back, baby. We are back! We're back! Yeah. Classic! We are back! We are back! We are getting back!
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other.
Have all four sidekicks ever been in the same place at the same time?
Don't call us sidekicks. Not after today.
I'm back in business, baby!
Why let them tell us what to do? It's simple. Get on board or get out of the way.
You just don't get it, do you? You went off mission. That was a huge mistake. Impulse? That's so crash!
I'm back, baby!
Why isn't anyone ever just whelmed?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Everyone Loves Young Justice podcast. I'm Rob.
And I'm Jay.
And this podcast is brought to you by the BatmanUniverse.net, your home for all things Batman and Robin and Young Justice and Bart and Connor. I about said Hawk. Connor Cat.
Oh,
Connor
snaps.
Hawk.
Let's do a Connor Hawk podcast next.
Oh, man. Terrence and I were just talking about Connor Hawk over on the Drake, and we got on a Connor Hawk kick. Like,
nice.
I would love for them to try to fit in Connor Hawk somewhere. Man, I miss the Connor Hawk Green Arrow series.
Me too. I love a lot of those legacy guys like Connor and
I mean,
of course, Kyle, is my favorite Green Lantern. Wally is the Flash. Just great time of comics where, characters would take up the mantle of other characters and then, become worthy of those titles. But Anyway, it was not, sadly, a Connor Hawk podcast.
No, there's probably one out there somewhere, so let us know where the Connor Hawk podcast is.
We want to be your friend.
Yes, definitely. Retweet. You can get a hold of us at ELTD Podcast on Twitter. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/ELYJPod. See, you can't plan this stuff. Yeah. You can email it to the show at ELYJPodcast@yahoo.com. And if you listen on iTunes, leave a review. That'll help spread the word of the show, and leave your comment and your star review, and we will read that on the show. Like I said, I'm Rob. We've got Jay here. It's been a little bit. We had this really great luxury of beginning of 2019 just recording a whole bunch of stuff, and then this thing called life got in the way, and
we had time, and then we didn't have time.
And then we did it, and we had got a message, and I'm apologizing for not remembering your name. I'll try and fit it in here, probably in an edit. And I found the tweet from at Mr. W. Wisehouse, and what they had said is, still stalling the Bendis books, huh? Question mark, as if like, oh, there's a reason why we're not covering the Bendis books. And that was just because Jay and I had not had a chance to record for about 3 months. So this is why it's taken us so long. Okay, so back to the show. He'd asked, are you guys skipping over the Brian Michael Bendis issue or run of Young Justice? Are you just doing the regular? I was like, no, we just have not gotten together to record. So I said at the time that Millennium issue had released a couple weeks ago, I said, we don't have anything in the can. The can is empty. So today we're getting a chance to record an episode, and then we're going to bank some more of the 2019, the 1998 version of Young Justice coming up. So we'll get the can full again here. But there's been a lot of stuff that has gone on since the last time you and I had officially recorded. Got the whole Tom King situation that's going on right now between him leaving the book or asking to be left or getting fired. I felt like as he's leaving, he's like, oh, by the way, I'm going to have Batman punch Tim Drake in the mouth. Yeah. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So any little tidbits that you have that just sparked your fancy, not only just in the Young Justice universe, but just in comics as a whole?
I mean, one thing that I'm sure we'll get into here that I just wanted to bring up was I went to Fan Expo Dallas a couple weeks ago. And I like to say, because I kind of did, I did break the news that Patrick Gleason was moving to Marvel. I said it's funny too because as much as I love going to conventions and walking around and everything, they wear you out. That you just get so tired. I got a chance to talk to Peter Tomasi, which I've talked to him at a couple of other cons, and he is a great guy. If you've, we talked a little bit about comics. This was the weekend that just before the issue of Detective Comics where you find out the identity of the Arkham Knight.
Right.
I had a chance to read an early review copy of it, so I told him, I was like, I won't say anything in case anybody's listening about it, but I do think that the way that you're handling this has been great, and I love the fact that the Arkham Knight's identity isn't as important as their mission. So we talked about that a little bit. But then I mentioned that I was going to be going to New York in a few weeks, and he told me a bunch of great places just to visit and everything. So, we just actually talked about stuff, which was really cool.
That's cool.
But I got a chance to meet Gleason, and I think I made a fool of myself just because I was so exhausted, partly from lugging around my Batman and Robin omnibus to have him sign. He signed that. He was a cool guy. But then come Sunday, I almost didn't go on Sunday afternoon just because I was like, I'm so tired. I got everything signed I wanted to get signed. John Byrne was there, and I had him sign a copy of the Man of Steel.
Dude, that's cool.
And he never goes to conventions, so I was like, okay, I have to get something there. Just by Sunday, I was like, okay, Marvel's having this panel that they say that they're going to have like a big surprise or something. I was like, I'll go to that just in case it's, newsworthy. Not necessarily thinking derisively about it, like, okay, I guess I'll go. But frankly, it was feeling a little bit like work. It was like I was going.
And no offense, but it's Dallas Con. It's not New York Comic Con. It's not San Diego, where one would typically drop a news story like this.
Yeah, exactly. The first year I went to Fan Expo is when they announced Dark Knight's Metal. So they did have, they are known to do some stuff like that, but still, last year was a much more subdued affair. There really wasn't nearly as much of a comics presence last year. So yeah, to your point, it's not something that they will normally, like a C2E2 or even, or, SDCC or anything like that. So I wasn't sure what to expect. I thought announced like a new Spider-Man title or a new direction of the character, or they're going to bring somebody back or something like that. I was like, okay, I'll go see what it is and everything. Well, I go into this panel and sit down, and gosh, who was it? It was Humberto Ramos, who has been a longtime Spider-Man artist. Matthew Rosenberg, who writes like Punisher, which is great. I'm not a Punisher guy at all, but his Punisher book is fantastic. And then Ryan Stegman and Donny Cates, who they do the Venom book right now. A lot of what they were talking about was the upcoming Absolute Carnage crossover miniseries kind of thing. And like before the panel started, I saw Patrick Gleason come into the room and like sit down. I was like, oh, he must be waiting to find out what this news is too. And then I thought for like a split second, I was like, oh, Patrick Gleason must be the news. And yeah, sure enough, they announced about halfway through the panel that Gleason had signed a exclusive contract with Marvel, and he would be starting. He and oh gosh, who is it? Ryan Otley will be kind of flip-flopping on the Amazing Spider-Man title. And Gleason also apparently has a bunch of other Marvel books in the works, which frankly is a great get for Marvel because, he's not just a great artist. He co-wrote Batman and Robin and Superman with Peter Tomasi, and even had that, pretty solid Robin, Son of Batman.
Yeah.
Which, it maybe wasn't, top tier, but it was still an enjoyable book. So,
right.
He's a good multi-talented artist that they could have gotten. So, great for him. But, when they announced that, I just, not so much yell out, but, they were like, any questions? And I was like, yeah, can we tweet this? And they're like, I guess so. You'll be the first one. So I tweeted it, and, the Comics Now Twitter went from, I don't remember how many followers we had, but we gained, 40 to 50 followers in an hour just from this. So, it was well worth it to go there. So,
well, I know this podcast for sure. Once I saw that, after I picked my heart up off the floor, I was like, oh no. Yay, cool for Pat, but oh no. I immediately went, okay, retweet that one.
Yeah.
And that's something, as we're going to talk about 3 books today, issues 3, 4, and 5, which I started noticing, Pat's doing the cover on this one, and he's doing some of the interiors, but he's not doing all of the interiors. This is really weird. What's going on here? So I'm wondering, at what point Young Justice was announced, how far into this was he to go, hey, I'll help you launch this, but I'll be gone by issue 5.
Yeah, I'm not sure really, but like you, I could kind of tell something was up when I think even in issue 2 there were some some fill-ins, which Gleason is one of the, I would say one of the top artists, the most highly sought after artists they would have at DC, would do a lot of covers and things like that. So, and, seemed like a guy who always had exciting projects lined up. So initially I just kind of wrote it off as, okay, maybe he's busy. Maybe, they just didn't have time to get this. I don't know how quickly he works. I don't know that he's necessarily one of the slower artists out there, but I don't think he's one that has one of the quicker turnaround times either.
Well, and I think he also, I don't know what he suffers from, but I know for a while he was going to conventions in a brace of some type. So I don't know if he has some form of tendonitis or something like that I thought, well, maybe he's just having some hand issues, so he was just needing that buffer, trying to churn out as many pages as he was being strenuous. So I thought, well, maybe there's a medical reason why that was the way it was, and maybe that's why he started doing more writing than he was doing drawing at the same time.
Sure. So so for a while it was okay, maybe he's busy. Maybe to your point, he just had something that was preventing him from working as much. But I could definitely tell something was up. But then when this was announced, and he was as part of the celebration of Batman panels at Fan Expo, so it's not like he was just completely shut off from DC. And
right.
People have even tweeted at him oh, are you not coming to these things? Because I think he had to cancel an upcoming convention, and somebody asked him kind of snidely, is this because you're no longer part of it? He's like, I love DC Comics, and I loved working on these characters. I also have a life that has things that come up, so it would never be out of any sort of spite or anything like that. We'll get into it a little bit more. I do like that, it wasn't necessarily distracting per se. It wasn't, he did 2 pages and then someone else did 2 pages. It was split up fairly evenly to where
I do too.
The different styles, at least, they flowed together, because in issue 3, we'll get to, he covers the framing story in the present, whereas Victor Bogdanovich covers, a flashback, which I've come to like that guy quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I could definitely tell that something was probably up. Just, again, I'm not sure if this was, it had to have been fairly recently, because contracts just aren't signed overnight.
Right.
I do wonder if maybe Young Justice launched, and maybe just after a couple of issues he was just getting restless. Maybe wasn't quite getting, I don't mean this in a, he's an entitled or spoiled kind of guy, but maybe he wasn't getting, the treatment or the projects he was wanting. Maybe he was looking for a little bit more. Maybe he was, looking for, a little bit more. Maybe he had a passion project that he kept pitching and pitching and pitching, and maybe he finally saw that, hey, I have enough tenure. I have enough titles under my belt that I can finally get this thing off the ground. And maybe it was another, and again, this is totally speculation. I'm not saying that Gleason has any of this. So don't take that as anything there. But, it could have been anything like that where he just got frustrated. Maybe he, just wanted to try his hand at, some Marvel characters for a while. But either way, I love all of his DC output, and definitely excited to see what he has to bring to the Marvel table as well, because like I said, that's a pretty good get for them there.
Oh, yeah, I do too. Well, let's just get into the books here. Let's take a quick little promo break, and then when we come back on the other side, Jay and I will go through the books that we missed over the course of the last couple months with Young Justice 3, 4, and 5. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is an imaginary podcast, which may never have happened.
The Shortbox Showcase.
But then again may have. About a father and daughter. I'm Professor Allen.
And I'm Emily.
Who came from Ohio and talked about comics.
Identity Crisis.
Lone Wolf and Cub.
Hergé's Tintin.
White Tiger. It tells of their rise to glory, when the great guests were yet to be booked.
I didn't know this was going to be the Jimmy Olsen Hate Podcast.
It's always the Jimmy Olsen Hate Podcast.
And the great feats of editing not yet performed.
Ultraman, this is Ultra 7, this is Ultraman Jack, and this is Ultraman Taro, and this is Ultraman Leo, and this is
Of how they spoke at length.
When I read a comic, story comes first and art comes second.
Continuity is really the brainchild of nitpicking nerds the world over.
Those are our people, Emily. And reviewed in brief tales that explore creatively the bounds of a given character's history.
Superman has basically the same relationship with Wonder Woman that he has with Batman.
Of brilliant creators before their fall from grace. This is the era where Miller is at the height of his creative and artistic powers, and the ability of strong writing to encapsulate and transcend its time.
Flash of Two Earths by Gardner Fox.
This is an imaginary podcast. Aren't they all? Shortbox Showcase is part of the Relatively Geeky family of podcasts. Check us out on the web at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search in iTunes for Relatively Geeky or Shortbox Showcase. And remember, we're not experts.
We're just family.
Can I get a tall chai?
And a large black coffee.
And I suppose you're here with no agenda, as per usual?
On the contrary, I'm here for comics.
I think I can help all of you. Hello, I'm the caffeinated Clinton Robinson, and I host a podcast called Coffee and Comics. On this podcast, I summarize, review, and discuss comic book issues, stories, and related media, usually in the span of time it takes to have a cup of coffee. Sometimes I'm joined by a guest, and sometimes I'm flying solo. So pour the coffee, take a sip, and turn up the volume as you listen to the Coffee and Comics Podcast. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, and directly on coffeeandcomicspodcast.blogspot.com. And remember, this is where the comics are never too old and the coffee is never too cold.
Recognize Superboy B04.
All right, and now the synopsis for Young Justice issues 3, 4, and 5, starting with first issue 3. The story is written by Brian Michael Bendis, cover art by Patrick Gleason. The art inside is by Patrick Gleason and Victor Bogdanovic, variant cover by Evan Doc Shaner. On sale date was March 6, 2019. And the synopsis for issue 3 reads as follows. Young Justice issue 3, 7 Crisis Part 3. When we last left the 2019 Young Justice book, Impulse has just been reunited with Superboy, Connor Kent. Bart goes straight for the hug and is not about to let go anytime soon. Connor finally pulls Bart off of him and wants to know how he got here and explains what Gemworld is. But as always, Bart won't shut up long enough and keeps asking his own series of rapid-fire questions to the Boy of Steel. Before any real questions can be answered by any of the boys, a trio of Lord Opal's guards arrive in front of the boys. They tell them that they are trespassing on Gemworld. This does not settle well with Impulse, and he states that they invaded Earth first and proceeds to tell them that they are in so much trouble because the guy in the Superman t-shirt is gonna kick their ass. Bart turns around to see how Superboy is gonna do it, but at that moment, Superboy is on his knees with his hands behind his back and is surrendering. Whoops. In a flashback story for Superboy, we see what he was doing on Earth before he arrived on Gemworld. He was reckless and not really motivated to go to school, so he just stopped as he was wanting to be a superhero full-time, who also, by the way, no longer cares about rules, and flies to Star Labs facility and wants some answers on what is happening in Star Labs and the alien he just brought to them that he won in a fight. When he does not get the answers he wants, he begins to smash doors open in Star Labs while creating an explosion that sends him off into the cosmos to Gemworld. Back on Gemworld, the guards question Superboy on where he's from, whether he is Earth or Kryptonian or both. Before he can answer, a woman shows up carrying a baby. It's Connor's wife? First the beard, now this. Boy, does Bart have so many more questions. In a deep, dark pit in Gemworld, Robin, Amethyst, Jenny Hicks, and Teen Lantern and Wonder Girl have all found themselves in this pit, trying to escape after having lost to Lord Opal once already. In the pit, reality is starting to affect Gemworld and is beginning to violently shake, and the minds of the heroes. And the only person that can fix the situation is Amethyst, and she is stuck in the hole with the team. The credits for Young Justice issue 4 read as follows. The story is written by Brian Michael Bendis, cover by Patrick Gleason, art by John Timms and Patrick Gleason, variant cover by Dan Mora. This was on sale April 3rd, 2019. Young Justice, Issue 4, 7 Crisis, Part 4. Back in the pit of Lord Opal's prison, Amethyst tells the young team that Lord Opal's spell is the one that is making them all loopy and why they can't remember much. She tells them that yesterday there was an attack at a wedding, that she stopped a kidnapping, but the result of her actions only made the situation harder for the lives of those in Gemworld. Amethyst tries to plead her case with the court and says that they need to do something or things will get much worse. They must stand and face Lord Opal as one. The council is very unhappy with her irrational actions, and a vote will be taken to see if she will be removed from the Gemworld Council. Amethyst leaves the court to go off and fight Lord Opal by herself if she must. In another part of Gemworld, Superboy and Impulse, and also now with Connor's wife and the baby, are in a tough spot. The guards tell them that everything they own is property to Lord Opal, and the fact that Superboy does not know this proves that he is not from Gemworld. Bart still has a million questions. The wife, the baby, the land, the house, the tree. Oh, and the beard. Does Opal own all of that? Superboy gives the guards a chance to leave, and they do not take it. So, Superboy does what Superboy does, and knocks the large guard out cold, and also knocks him right out of his armor, down to his undies. The other two guards leave in a hurry. Connor turns and asks Bart, "Who else is with you?" Back in the pit, Jenny can hear the guards messing with her truck. She warns them that maybe they should not be messing with that, especially the trunk. There's a lot of old weaponry in there, and it might not be stable and could be extremely dangerous. Before she can warn them any farther, there's an explosion, and the guards in the prison are all vaporized. The explosion has cleared the heads of the team. They feel different now, and before they can say any more, a grate from the prison floor is ripped off by Superboy. Robin can hardly believe his eyes. It's Connor Kent. Superboy sees Wonder Girl fly out of the hole. Cassie Sandsmark. It's Young Justice. Connor, Tim, Cassie, and Bart all embrace for a long overdue hug. Of course, this makes Bart extremely happy. The reunion needs to be cut short, and the team needs to move fast if they're going to leave Gemworld, and Lord Opal will be arriving soon enough to find them. And the final credits today for Young Justice issue number 5, written by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by Patrick Gleason and Chris Anka, and also art by Evan Doc Shaner, cover by Patrick Gleason, and this will be his final cover and final DC comic book appearance as artist. The on sale date is May 1st, 2019. Young Justice issue number 5, 7 Crisis, Part 5. Young Justice wastes no time in trying to get themselves far away from Lord Opal's stronghold so they can regroup. They did not get far when Lord Opal catches up with the team, and this time he has brought something with him. Kryptonite. Robin is shocked. How could he have kryptonite here? How? 2 days earlier, back on Earth, Tim Drake and Stephanie Brown are, making out in front of the Hall of Justice of all places. They were off on their way to college following the events of Detective Comics 981 when Tim decided that he needed to find this Connor person that is stuck inside of his memory, something that won't let go from his mind. They take a moment in the sunset to reflect on their life and their love for one another and just what they are going to do. Tim has asked someone to meet them there. It's Zatanna. Tim and Zatanna discuss that Tim has met another version of himself and has other memories of that life, but he can't remember who and what they are. He knows that they must be real and wants to understand them. Zatanna casts a spell on Tim and touches his temples and tries to show him the truth that's inside of his mind. Connor. Bart. Red Tornado. Arrowette. Secret. Slobo. The Ray. The Super Cycle. The JLA. It's all coming back to Tim in one gigantic rush. He almost collapses to the ground before Stephanie catches him. He had a whole other entire life. That was no alternate anything. That was his friend. That was his team. In the present, the kryptonite is beginning to slowly kill Superboy. He was going to be their key to defeating Lord Opal. Opal demands that this time he wants the House of Amethyst. She was warned for any more interfering. Connor says that he will make a deal. What could this boy possibly offer him? With the distraction in the blink of an eye, probably even faster, Impulse snatches the kryptonite and races with it, far away, far, far away, drops the kryptonite off, and then returns back to the team as they begin to attack Lord Opal. They were getting the upper hand on the Dark Lord when a dark black energy emits from Lord Opal, covering Young Justice as a whole. It's not Gemworld, Amethyst says, that was constantly erupting violently. It's Lord Opal. He is causing the destruction in Gemworld. His power is ripping reality apart, and then the team slowly begins to phase out of existence. Back to Tim and Stephanie a few days earlier on Earth, we see Tim Drake now donning a new Robin costume. He is back to just being Robin. They both stand in front of each other and knows what needs to be done. Stephanie has received a message from her father, and she needs to go see him so she can make things right to finally let this part of her life go. And Robin knows what he needs to do. He needs to find his team. He needs to find his friend. Batman is MIA for some reason, and he is unable to contact Superman. He's off-world or must be tied up with something else. He tells Steph that he will zoom over to Metropolis and see Superman quickly, and then they can meet back here in 3 days. Tim and Stephanie say their I love yous to one another. 3 days. 2 days. Madly in love right back here in 2 days. Next, the fate of Young Justice. All right, Young Justice 3. I love both of these covers by Doc Shaner, which I got to meet at Motor City Comic Con, which figures into my what's been going on in comics a little bit. I got a chance to speak to him about, not really about Tim Drake's possible new look or costume. He didn't give anything away. But what he did say was that he said he was a little apprehensive, like, I hope they do right by Tim Drake. And he said, once he saw what the looks were going to be, he said, being a Tim Drake fan, he said, you can look at it and go, yep, that's Tim Drake. Being a fan myself, he said, I'm very happy with the future of Tim Drake. So that was a nice little sigh of relief. Like, anytime there's a costume change or there's going to be the character's going to get a new code name or whatever, you're like, oh man, please don't do Guy Gardner Warrior, you know,
oh gosh,
or something
Tim Drake,
crazy.
Warrior.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Tim Drake, the computer kid. No, computer lad.
Joining the Legion of Superheroes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, definitely. I love both these covers. Again, being a big Pat Gleason fan, I loved this first. I wish this was the first cover for Young Justice. I understand why they, flipped that around and we belabored that for almost a whole entire episode of them flipping covers. But it was nice to finally see this one released, and Shaner's cover is just as cool. I was glad to have him be able to sign this. He has such a small, tiny little signature, just his S, and then just it looks like some little scribbles, but it's a really cool signature. But I like both of these covers. What'd you think of the main A cover and then Doc's B variant?
Yeah, like you said, the first cover would have been the Gleason cover would have been a great cover for issue 1. Again, like you, I understand why they didn't go with it. I am glad that they, used it for an issue here at least.
Right.
And it's kind of fitting for this one because this is more about Superboy especially. So nice to see him, in the front and center there. But, just a lot of energy. You get I like that all the boys are smiling.
Yeah.
I mean, today it's kind of almost a faux pas to say, oh, the heroes are smiling and having a good time. It's like, who cares? They can. If I had superpowers or were Batman's best friend, I'd probably be smiling quite a lot, too.
I get to ride in the Batmobile. What do you drive?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a great cover. It captures the energy of all of them and the personalities really well. I love the pose Impulse is in, especially just, that high flying, kicking his legs out, fist pump in the air. And Robin has kind of the action pose, but it still has a lot of joy and youthful energy to it. And, Superboy just there in his tattered but still rad 90s costume, just a really solid image. And Shaner said it a million times before, I want this guy to draw everything forever. I love his style so much. And I love the it's not monochrome because it's multicolored, but I love how each character is monochrome. And it's kind of I guess some of them, it makes sense. Like Amethyst is purple and, Teen Lantern is green and Superboy is blue. That kind of makes sense. And Bart is kind of orangish. But, I love that it's not, they're not necessarily on the nose picks. Because, Robin's yellow, which kind of makes sense. But still, that's not a Robin color. But it still looks great. And Cassie's in red, which, she has a lot of red in her costume, but, still, you could have gone a couple of different ways with her and it could have worked. And, I love that all these characters look, young. They don't look like they're, the same 40-year-old face that the artist uses for, or the same face that an artist uses for 40-year-olds and 14-year-olds.
Right, yeah.
They have a youthful look to them. And they all look, distinct as well. Robin and Superboy don't look remarkably like each other. And Impulse, he has his goggles and everything, so he has his own look. But all the girls have their own. They have their own face shapes, and they have their own, like Ginny Hex's freckles, and Teen Lantern's, her hair. They all have their own distinguishing characteristics that even if they weren't necessarily in costume, you could still probably tell who was who.
Yeah. Let's just get into this. I love the opening of this book of, when we last saw Connor and Bart, we get to reveal that Superboy is there, and we kind of saw him with the beard. They have a little discussion back and forth, and Bart goes into the instant hug. And I love the joke where Connor's like, okay, well, we need to get going. And Bart's like, nope. Not yet. I just thought that was really funny. It was cute and clever, and I'm really digging where Bendis is. I shouldn't say finding the voices. I feel like he looked at the old Young Justice book and brought in the voices that you know and love for the characters, while still giving them that little bit of a modern tweak. So I was just like Bart, once he can calm down, is to figure out, well, how, why, and where. How did Connor get here? You know, why does he have a beard? You know, what are all these events that are going on, while also having to discuss and stand down Lord Opal's guards. So what is your thoughts in this issue, things that you really liked, or things that maybe didn't quite land real well with you?
I mean, just overall, I loved the interactions between Bart and Connor. I mean, like you said, that's pretty rock solid. I do think that in some cases Bendis is still finding the appropriate voices.
Yeah.
This, like the flashback in this issue and issue, how far are we going? 5? Yeah, issue 5. Especially, there are some moments where I do think that maybe it's, I don't know, the voicing and characterization was a little off.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah,
but no, I mean, I loved the chemistry between the boys just being old friends, and then Bart saying silly stuff like, as King of Earth, I hereby place you under arrest. Bart's probably the easiest one to write. I mean, it would still be difficult to make sure he's not overly obnoxious, but I do feel like he is the one that would be an easier character to get a grasp of, as opposed to Connor, who effectively has been missing for years and has evolved from the incredibly cocky, don't call me Superboy, I'm Superman, and let me tell you about my tactile telekinesis, to a much more layered and sympathetic and relatable character in his later characterization, even after his death and everything. I was frankly surprised at the twist at the end. As I'm
my gosh.
You were as well. I mean, we might as well get into it.
No, go for it.
That he has a wife and a child here.
And a child, yeah.
Which, I mean, is surprising enough, but, we won't get, go too far down it, because this is comics, and it's like, well, you can say whatever, but he's supposed to be perpetually 16, so that was a little weird, but, maybe he's grown up a little bit, and he's physically perpetually 16, but he can still age.
I wonder if Gem World did something.
That's
to
a good
him.
point too. Is Gem? He's been in this other dimension for so long. Maybe he did start aging, because, he's got he's got some scruff on his face, and he does look maybe a little bit more mature. Still looks young, but not. Even though they're two different artistic styles, compare. I'm reading these digitally, so this is digital pages 18 and 19. He does look noticeably older between Bogdanovich's page on page 18 versus Gleason's page on 19. So it does look like he's had some time to mature and everything. But it was definitely the issue everybody was waiting for. I did think that the flashback telling about how Superboy wound up where he is, and where he went for so long and everything, it was okay. It's very wordy. I felt like maybe it could have afforded another draft or so just to tighten it up a little bit. And I did think he was kind of a butthead, but not in an endearing way. I mean, he did.
He was almost a butthead on the sake of that Damien is a butthead. Where you're like, dude, shut it.
Yeah, I mean, he was being kind of a jerk, and not the fun, I'm gonna fly off to Hawaii and have my own adventures there kind of way. I mean, he was kind of a jerk in this backstory, but I did at least enjoy reading it. And again, I've been a fan of Bogdanovich's since he did the Arkham Knight tie-in series with.
I was glad you mentioned that. I loved his art in that series.
Oh man, it was great. I mean, he's just evolved into having kind of his own style over the years. Again, this is digital, so I'm not sure if you're in the physical copies here.
I've got the physical beside me, but I'm lazy and I'm on digital right now.
That page 17 is absolutely stunning. He's kind of falling through a void.
Yes.
Victor's been on, he did the most recent issue of Aquaman, and I think he's doing one or two more. And I mean, that Aquaman stuff is probably the best stuff of his career. It is gorgeous. And he has a couple of pages that are kind of reminiscent of this, but like in the ocean depths.
Yeah.
But I mean, swiped because I read this digitally, but you get to that page there where there's all those gems and everything, and then there's the explosion. I was honestly just speechless, and I think I even audibly gasped when I saw that, just because the composition of it, and Connor just floating there in the void with all the the stars in the background, and then the different plumes of energy from those different gems kind of coalescing in the middle there. I mean, it is just a beautiful, beautiful shot there.
Yeah. That would be a great cliffhanger issue. Like, imagine this happening in pre-New 52 before we get to the New 52, and we're left with that, and we get to revisit this era. That would have been like, oh my gosh, that was from 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And it very well feels like this is their explanation for that. And I like the flip of his costume. His later 2000s costume is actually now the first costume he would wear in the jeans and the t-shirt, and then he gets his updated look, almost more from Gem World, of like one of the guards is like, oh, we can dress this up, we can make it look better, we can make it look nicer, and this is their idea of like the patches and belts and the studs on top of the jacket to explain where this comes from.
Yeah, narratively speaking, I did like this more than issue 2, because I liked some of the interaction between Cassie and it's been a while. It was Zeus, right?
Yes.
Yeah. They were talking. I mean, I liked some of their interaction together, but I think I made the point then that it felt like a bunch of like secondary scenes and like a side story from 4 or 5 different issues.
Yeah.
Compiled together into one. It just felt really choppy. Here, I love the framing of it better. Starting out in Gem World and then flashing back and getting the context of Superboy's absence there, and then ending back on Gem World and catching up with Connor, finding out he has his own family, and then finally going back to Robin and Ginny and Amethyst and Wonder Girl there in the prison. So the pacing of this story, even though in the midsection there was a little bit of a narrative drag with some of the writing, it was still paced like a more complete issue than issue 2. So I did appreciate that.
Yeah, I thought it tied the bow a little bit tighter on this one, like you said, narratively. And I was really intrigued in the last series of panels that the heroes that are in there that you mentioned, Robin and Amethyst and Jenny, are all having some sort of, like, more for Amethyst, they're having a hard time knowing and remembering where they are. Is that due to them being imprisoned in here, or is that just a byproduct of Gem World?
I don't know. I think what we're supposed to infer is that things work a little bit differently there. I mean, I could be way off base here, of course. I think that's what we're supposed to infer, because, even Amethyst, she lives there, and she's still not entirely sure about some of the stuff that's going on. So I think that's what we're supposed to get, that things get confused and muddled there. Mm-hmm. So I think that is, you're at least on the right track there, yeah.
One last little beat, unless you have any more, another funny moment involving Bart, where he's pontificating to one of the guards, like, if you want Superboy so badly, and Connor's like, Bart, I mean, if you're really in the market, Bart, he's just like going through like, oh, is this anonymous farm boy? You're wearing a Superman t-shirt. You must be a big fan. Is there anything you want to do? Like, all right, here it comes. And then Superboy, hands behind his head, kneeling down. I thought that was like, I've already fought these guys and lost. So I just thought just that whole big boastfulness and braggadocious that Bart is to turn around and be like, oh, the heavy gun's on the ground. Well, crap.
Yeah, exactly. And then, Connor's just like, what did you do? Yeah, that's like I said, the chemistry there is definitely a bright spot. So definitely made this one worth reading by itself, if not for finding out exactly where Connor's been all this time.
Right, and I think it's going to end up being a little slower burn, I think, with one more. Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. Sure. If you're ready, let's just get into issue number 4 of this.
All right, yeah.
This is a trippy cover, and I think a couple days after this issue had come out, Gleason had put on his Instagram all the layers that made up this, of seeing what's behind Lord Opal here on the front, seeing all the heroes, and then the armature, if you will, of Lord Opal's face, and where you can kind of see all the hands and arms go through. Mm-hmm. It was a really trippy cover to look at first, and thought the B cover was pretty cool as well. What'd you think about this cover for issue 4?
It's technically, like on a technical level, it is very impressive. Like you said, that there's a lot of layers that Gleason would have to do to get everything just right on there. I mean, it's not the most visually appealing. I think that's part of the point is that it's supposed to be a little bit off-putting and almost oppressive. And I like the idea of them being, imprisoned by Opal and like under his rule and everything, and his oppression and everything. So I like the idea, and some of their facial expressions here are kind of fun. Like Robin is kind of smushed up against I think it's Amethyst. And Teen Lantern's just kind of up there, by herself, kind of freaking out. But then Jenny down at the bottom just looks a little more confused than anything. Or no, that's Jenny. Sorry. Then there's
Jenny. Yeah.
Again, I mean, I couldn't have done it, and the technical aspects of it, are really, really strong. Still, not one that, if I wasn't already reading the book, I would look at and say, "Ooh, I need to check this book out." I honestly might maybe just pass it up, just because it's just so weird.
Yeah, I do like the Dan Mora cover better. Is actually my favorite cover, as much as I like Gleason. His cover is very simple. It's just a white background with Robin, Cassie, Teen Lantern, and Superboy with his back turned, and Robin's holding some batarangs in his bow staff. Looks very cool. It would be very posterish, like, hey, here's a poster I found at Walmart. Bam, put it up on the wall. Again, I don't know if it's cover that you go, oh, hey, read me. But if I was picking one of the two, and of course I bought both, but if I was only going to get one, I think I would gravitate towards the variant cover over Gleason's here. As much as I like it technically, there's, like you said, there's something a little off-putting about it, and maybe that's what we're supposed to be. It's off-putting for our heroes.
Yeah, that variant cover actually wasn't in the digital copy here, so I had to look it up. That is more like a pinup, like, something that he would just, Mora would sell at conventions, but
right.
I like Mora's style. He does... I think he does the Firefly comic for Boom Studios, which is
I believe you're right.
Pretty good book. But yeah, I mean, this is it's a pretty cool image. I like the, whether it was intentional or not, call back to that classic Superboy pose with him, looking over his shoulder, and you can see the S shield on the back of his jacket. It's just missing, the thumb pointing to it. So whether he meant to or not, that was a cool nod. But, I mean, it's a technically good cover, but it is more just kind of with a lot of those variants for issue 1, where it just felt like it was a bunch of characters just kind of pasted together.
Right.
But at least the composition is strong, and his I really, really like, especially Tim's hair there.
Oh, yeah.
It looks very 90s Robin-ish without it being like how, oh gosh, who would do a lot of it?
Ringo would do a lot with the spiky hair.
Yeah, but it would be like huge, which I loved Ringo and everything, and I love the way he did that. But I like how it kind of calls back to it without being derivative of Ringo's, more exaggerated style.
Yeah. So this issue, just like the Connor and Bart hug, I want to go bury the lead and go right to page 17 digitally of finally seeing Connor, Tim, Bart, and Cassie all embrace and hug. I liked seeing, the three girls, Teen Lantern, Jenny, and Amethyst kind of looking on, but I wish the original core group of Young Justice would have had their full splash page moment to revel in. It's a great piece, but I wish it was a nice full splash page shot of the group, and it's after them getting out of the prison, which I thought was a really good sequence. But I wanted to get your thoughts just on finally seeing the original team back together after all these years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree about it. Like, it would have been nice for them to have a full splash page where they can, just embrace and, be glad to be there together. I do think that in context it works fine this way, though.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the it's not a splash page per se, page 17, that really, the dynamic action of Connor, lifting the prison floor above his head, and Cassie being surprised, and, Connor saying, Cassie Sandsmark.
Yeah.
And then getting the page turn reveal of them embracing. And I do think that I like that Amethyst and Ginny and Teen Lantern's reactions are there as well, just to serve as the audience stand-in of, even though we're not part of that group in the group hug, we can still appreciate the weight and the gravity and the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
But then just having to jump into action after that, I was like, okay, back down to business, and let's figure out how we're going to get out of here. So it works, but yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to get a full page image, especially thinking selling prints and stuff like that. That would be one that would definitely be a top seller for Gleason if he had just that full page of Superboy, Wonder Girl, Robin, and Impulse there hugging.
Yeah. Now, much like the previous issue, this is also intermixed with flashbacks for Amethyst, where we're developing a little bit more of Amethyst's story. And this is one this also reminds me much like the Cassie issue where dealing with her grandfather, where it becomes very wordy in this. So there was a lot going on here of who she is and where her place at the table is, and getting the feeling that she's a bit of a hothead and she's actually causing some problems here, and she could be voted out of the council, or decisions that are being made, she's just going to go leave. So I was wanting to get your take on this. Is this where Bendis is going back to, all right, we've got a lot of dialogue, and I'm feeling like it's starting to break up the story a little bit, and sometimes not in a great way. Like, we're doing all this to get the group out of the pit, and now we've got to stop and go backwards to find out where all these characters are.
I get that. I will say that I liked this more than Cassie's issue. I think it's because I don't know Amethyst as well. So, learning about her, you don't get a lot of her history necessarily. You find out some of it,
right.
But just learning more about her and her personality, and even how things work on Gemworld, even because, I'm not familiar with Gemworld either. I was at least more interested and felt like it, maybe flowed a little bit better. But, I mean, I do agree that, it is a lot of... in some cases, dumpy exposition of so many words on a page. And it's not like I'm buying a comic. I didn't buy this to read it. I bought it to, look at the pretty pictures and get through it in 5 minutes. So, there is at least that aspect that, you get your money's worth, in the narrative and dialogue. But yeah, there is a lot. Yeah, like you said, though, I do wish that the story was moving forward a little bit faster, because even after the end of issue 5, we still don't have a great idea of what they're supposed to be facing, like what they're supposed to be preparing for. There's that vague, 7 crises and everything, like that. As much as I want to find out where Superboy's been this whole time and learn more about Amethyst, who I don't know, and Teen Lantern and Ginny Hex, who I don't know either. I definitely want to know this. I do feel like the pacing could be a bit better. Maybe instead of focusing on just one person per issue, either spacing this out or, just shorten it up a little bit, because you don't necessarily need 2 double page spreads of people talking around like a war council and everything to get the idea. But I mean, Bendis is the professional writer and everything, and I'm not.
Right.
So far be it for me to say how somebody should be writing something. It's just an observation that from an editorial approach, maybe it could have been tightened up a little bit more.
Yeah. The splash page of Connor knocking the dude out, digital, if you're looking at digital, is 10, knocking the guard like completely down to his undies, knocking all of the armor off was really pretty cool. Bart having the moment on page 12 with Connor's wife and the baby zipping back and forth, having that little exchange happen, and Connor having the question of Young Justice, like the new reformed Young Justice, and Connor, I'm taking that as like he doesn't remember Young Justice, like, is really? So I didn't know like what your take was on the Young Justice bit and just Bart's little flitting around there.
I'm not sure because when he sees Cassie, I mean, he clearly recognizes her.
Right.
I think it's not maybe going back to what we were talking about a little while ago, that it may seem to cloud your memory and everything. Maybe this is something that he hadn't thought about in so long. It was like, wait, Young Justice, I know that. Yeah, and then he says, who is with you? And then, he sees with his own eyes in a couple of pages, Tim Drake and Cassie and everything, and it probably just all comes back to him right there. So I think it was maybe more of a, seeing like a distant light through like the fog of an uncertain memory is what he was going through there.
That very well could be. The final two pages, 20 and 21, seeing Lord Opal's effect on Gemworld and, more importantly, Amethyst and her palace and castle, which ties, I shouldn't say clear back, but goes back to issue 1, where it ends with Robin at the end of the sword for Amethyst. So we have now gone back to issue 1, where, she ends up saying, what are you doing in the House of Amethyst? And we see that a little bit more clearly, that Robin was there in the castle while this is going on. So I wonder if that is going to be a beat that will be played out a little bit more. So what'd you think about issue 4 as a whole before we get on to issue 5, and any other little tidbits that maybe we missed?
Like I said, I was a little more invested with Amethyst's story here just because I don't know her as well, so I was wanting to read a little bit more of that, even if I feel like it could have been tightened up. I like John Timms. I like his work. I mean, if losing Gleason is, a huge bummer, I do think that Tim's style does work really well with these characters. I especially like some of the really weird like overlay effects he did, like toward the end there when the castle is, disrupted and everything, and it almost looks like, when you get those like old, 3D images that, were kind of slightly off from each other to get the red and the blue images, overlaid together. So when you put the glasses on, they get the 3D effect.
Right.
There is something that kind of reminded me of that there, and it looks really cool. I like bringing it back to the end of issue 1 with Tim and Amethyst running into each other, getting at that, Amethyst isn't just an aggressive warrior or anything. She's just as alarmed to see Tim as he is of her, and she thinks that he could possibly be part of the more shady dealings that council is a part of. So it was cool learning more about her. Yeah, I really don't have an awful lot to say. That one beat that was funny. Bart's, no. You don't get to make the questions until you tell me where babies come from. And then he's like, rephrase very specifically, where did that one come from? So that was pretty funny. Like I said, the banter, I think Bendis has down really well. Just kind of it's funny because in the first issue or two, some of the banter seemed maybe a little forced or a little off. But I definitely think, especially between Bart and Connor, he has that down pat. It's just some of the more necessary plot-focused dialogue that can get a little dry, but it's never too bad that it took me 3 days to read it or anything.
Right.
It just, again, could have been, I guess, tightened up a little bit more in some areas.
Well, let's go on to the final issue for today as we tighten up our podcast for Young Justice issue 5, and sadly the final cover for Pat Gleason. I like this cover. I wanted one more glorious cover for him to go out on, but it sounds bad. This is the cover we're left with. I think it's a really cool cover. As much as I say that, I really dig the variant cover. I really dig, I think Inca is how you say his name, where you've got, when I saw this solicited, a month ago, seeing we're going to get Zatanna in this, and look, there's spoiler with Tim Drake. What is going on here? So as much as I was excited about furthering the Young Justice story, now you put spoiler on the variant cover, and I was like, okay, where is this going? So I love both covers, but I really dig the variant cover on this one. What are your thoughts on the two covers?
Yeah, the Gleason cover is good storytelling.
Yeah,
just with all the the shattered gems, that fits in thematically with where they are, and maybe it is a little weird seeing all of them, smiling while there's this figure at the bottom who's being almost crushed by another gem. But no, the figure works great. I like that one, and yeah, that variant cover, just the composition of that one, the coloring of it is, the coloring is actually what sells that for me. I love how Robin and Spoiler have a radiance to them, and Zatanna's in the background a little more, not necessarily washed out, but a little more mysterious, but she does have a sly smirk on her face. Robin and Spoiler are supposed to be the focal point, so I really dig that. Really like the coloring work on it especially.
I don't want to jump too far. I want to get to let's save the I would say the best for last, at least for me, because this is going to turn into an episode of Robin Everyone Loves a Drake here pretty quick. I do like that we do have the whole team together, and I do like this, and I miss this from time to time in comics. This was something that you would see more done in the 70s and 80s, where you have all the heroes standing there, and they would put all the fonts of all the characters to let you know, hey, here's Teen Lantern, here's Superboy, Impulse, Wonder Girl, Ginny Hex, Robin, and Amethyst is the only one without her font over her name to let you know who she is. But, there it is. I'm sorry, it's at the top. She's in the first... first panel. I was looking over her standing on the car. So I think this is really cool that the whole entire team is out and they're making their way through Gem World, and then now the bits and pieces of who they are starting to come back a little bit more. Now actually getting to battle Lord Opal, who is now standing in front of all of them. And the odd thing is seeing him with a piece of kryptonite, and Tim realizing oh my gosh, Opal has kryptonite. How could he have that? How could that be? And then that's where we get our cliffhanger before the break. So what did you think about this section right here before we get into the latter half of the book?
It is, I really like the kind of recap page. That's a lot of fun. Marvel does that a lot, which isn't Marvel's superior to DC, but sometimes with some of these books, especially that have ongoing narratives, it'd be nice if it had here's the story so far. And I like the composition of it, even though it kind of looks like Impulse is punching Teen Lantern, even though I think it's supposed to just be running. It looks like he took a swing and a miss there. I like how the characters are, I don't know,
how they're laid out.
Yeah, how they're laid out. Yeah, I was about to say how they're placed on there. Yeah, I like how they're laid out on here. They all do look like they're in slightly different scenes here, because Amethyst and Wonder Girl a little more shocked or concerned, or a little more focused on a battle, whereas Impulse and Superboy and Robin and Ginny Hex are more just going for the cool superhero pose.
Right.
But I like the layout of it, and I really like that lettering too. Just looks kind of handwritten. Who was the letterer for this issue? Let me check here. It is Wes Abbott.
Yeah,
familiar with this stuff. He's pretty solid. Like the recap page, like I said, I wish it was something that more comics would take advantage of. That first action page there, I'm trying to remember who does what. I'm pretty sure this is Tim's.
I believe so.
Anka, I think, is the one who does the actual flashback scenes, and then Shaner has that one really awesome page that I know we're just gonna, geek out over.
Right.
Like I said, I like Tim's style. It's very. We mentioned like Mike Waringo earlier. It's not quite like as exaggerated as that, but it does have kind of that sort of loose energy with like, especially with how the characters' limbs are proportioned and laid out. Like Teen Lantern's legs are wide apart and her arm is out, and Robin is in a his legs are far apart and he has his bow staff, clenched in his fists and everything. We see that a lot with Waringo, just that very
battle ready pose.
Yeah, like an animated style almost, where this could almost be like a storyboard or an animation cell. So this is pretty cool. Some of the faces get a little strange, like Teen Lantern's face on that first page there, page 5 digitally, almost looks like a Brett Booth face. Shades of that there. But no, this is pretty cool. There's a lot of dialogue without it being too wordy, so I like how the team is starting to kind of gel and start to play off of each other and actually converse. Then, get that little shocker there of how exactly does Lord Opal have the kryptonite. So that's a pretty cool story transition to send us back in time to find out where Tim and, turns out, spoiler, were this whole time.
Yeah, a little bit of context on the page, believe this is 4, where it says Young Justice DC proudly presents Young Justice with Robin hanging on the side of Ginny Hicks's car. Says, have you ever met Batman? You drive just like him. She says, actually I have. He said, oh, I was kidding. And you get a little bit more of that where Tim says, when did you meet Batman? She's like, 2 weeks ago. So if you've picked up the Walmart 100-page Giants, if you've bought the Batman issue that is written by Brian Michael Bendis, Ginny Hicks's first appearance is in that, so that makes that Walmart 100-page Giant now in continuity with this Young Justice, because that is the only time that Ginny has come up next to Batman's story. So I thought that was a little bit interesting as well.
Yeah, it's definitely cool that they brought that callback in there, and they're actually going to be reprinting those. Did you know that?
Yeah, they're going to do. I don't know if they're putting all the new stuff by themselves in one collected together. Like Batman will get his own, or will it be here are all of the new stories all together and all in one format?
No, it's going to be kind of like how they would do, the digital comics. Like effectively the physical issue would be 2 digital issues together. So like for the Batman universe is what the story is called, with the Bendis and Nick Darrington Batman story. It'll effectively be like 2 different chapters from 2 of the Walmart 100-page Giants in one issue. Like they're being solicited as that. I think they're carrying over the name Batman Universe 1 of 6, and then Tom King and I think it's Andy Kubert.
Okay.
Might be Adam Kubert. I can't remember. I mixed the two.
I think it's Andy. I think.
Yeah. They have Superman. I think it's called Up in the Sky. That's how that's being solicited, as like Superman Up in the Sky, like a 6-issue miniseries. So there'll be, and then there was some Wonder Woman and the Teen Titans ones that Jurgens had been writing.
Right.
Going to be collecting those. So it's certainly going to be, if you got the 100-page Giants, like number 3 and 4. Like where that Batman universe started, it would take the original content from both of those and put it in just one typical 32-page comic.
Cool. Now the part that I really want to talk about, where this is going to turn into Robin Everyone Loves the Drake. One of the big lingering questions that a lot of us had at the end of, I'm scrolling frantically here, for Detective 981, when Tynion was wrapping up everything and Tim and Stephanie go driving off into the sunset, and they decide, you know what, we're not going to go to college, we're going to go off on our own adventure. So a lot of us have been wondering, well, what is that adventure? What were those two going to do? And then we wait, and here we are finally getting the chance to get this resolved And it was cool to see Tynion tweet out like, hey, if you're curious what happened to Tim and Stephanie, pick up Young Justice issue number 5. So I would bet at some point Bendis and James had talked to one another like, hey, what was your plan to do with Tim and Stephanie? Would probably think he had his blessing, like, hey, here's what I was going to do. So I think this is really cool that the two of them, of all places, decided to make out in front of the Hall of Justice. So if you've watched the Young Justice cartoon show enough, I don't know if this is the facade. I think right now in Snyder's Justice League, they don't have the Watchtower anymore. This is the effective home of the Justice League. So of all the places where they were going to run away from, you're picking a place to make out in front of, right where Batman could literally look out the window and watch you.
Hey, hide in plain sight.
Hide in plain sight. So this also does a retcon with Stephanie's dad having been killed in Batman Eternal, that he is now alive, where Stephanie is saying, my dad, and Tim's like, oh, the master thief, is he in jail? Say no, as he should be. So they've turned that a little bit as well. And I like their banner back and forth. And I think something else that ties this back to Detective Comics is when, and forgive me for not having the detective issue at hand to remember, but there was the issue where Batman talked to Zatanna about wanting to know the fate of Tim Drake and wanting to know all that. So I like how this buttons that as well, that Zatanna is the one that is going to give Tim his memories back to know who and what he is, which effectively will make Tim and Stephanie, or actually makes Tim make the choice of what he's going to go do. And like you said, the splash page that Shaner did of the memories coming back and seeing very much how Wally did when he was going around reconnecting things, having that glass shatter. So seeing the classic Young Justice where there's Secret, Arrowette, Slobo, and the Ray, a Red Tornado, and then the JLA in the background. You can see Kyle Rayner way back there in the 90s. And
Aquaman with his weird one shoulder armor.
Yeah. So I thought that was enough to geek out on, and seeing
Super Cycle,
yeah. So, and I'm blanking on who the girl is behind Superboy.
Oh gosh, I was about to say, who's that supposed to be?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
I kept thinking, oh, that's Naomi. No, she didn't exist then.
Yeah. Bart, that's a really good book.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't been reading it, Naomi from Brian Michael Bendis is just that's a good book. Naomi, there you go. The end.
Yeah.
Carry on, Rob.
No, I do. I really like that they brought Stephanie in here, and Tim being the first member of the Bat family. Well, I should say the first member. Dick had gone through this with Wally, but realizing that he had a whole entire other life, or an alternate life with his friends and his team. And I'm glad that it's Zatanna that is the one that has done this. And this we'll skip to the end here, skipping over this middle. We'll tell you what, we'll go back to current time since we're out of the flashback with Lord Opal and the Kryptonite. I like who stole the Kryptonite from Lord Opal and how that all plays out, and then what ends up happening to Lord Opal as a result of that. I think it's really cool that it's Bart Impulse that zips through and is able to man up, like as chaotic and crazy as he is, for him to be able to do this because he's hurting his friend. I thought that was just a great sequence.
Yeah, definitely. Because we've talked about it in some of the other issues. Even though Bart is a goof, and in the original Young Justice run, Max Mercury would lament that Bart was anywhere near anything requiring even modicum of responsibility. He's still a good kid. He still knows the right thing to do, and he's still more than willing to look out for his friend. Yeah, I like that. Bart is the one who takes action and puts himself at risk so that he can get something that's hurting his friend away from him, and that way they can kind of gain the upper hand on Opal and incapacitate him and his shadowy underlings there too. That's a really cool sequence.
Yeah, but this is where it's going to tie into the end of the book, which I think is a little bittersweet. That this is what's going to take Young Justice out of current continuity and have them lost in time and in space, if you will, where as much as they think they're getting the upper hand on Lord Opal, he's able to regain some control here and is ripping their reality apart in the gem world. So you get this really trippy sequence, like you said, like if you had your 3D glasses on, it would put all the images together. So I like that it's all distorted and you can't quite see. And you can actually see some tears run down Amethyst's eyes, that she knows what's happening, what's going to happen to Gem World, and what is effectively going to happen to all of them, which pays off, I think, is really sad by the end of this, that Tim has decided, in a flashback, that he knows they were called Young Justice, and he has to go out and try and save his friends and bring them all together. And it's only just going to be a couple days. In a couple days, Tim will come back and they can restart their romance, and they can they're just going to put that pause button. And I like that, they have their embrace here, and he says, "I'm madly in love with you, Steph. I just wanted to tell you that. I was going to tell you I was so happy that in my repressed memories too, but I didn't want to." And they have that kiss, and they're saying in 3 days, in 2 days, promise. I can't. I know, but I do. And I think that Young Justice, and like we know from the solicits, they're going to be ripped away from time, and Tim is not going to arrive 3 days later to hook up with Stephanie. And it says next, the fate of Young Justice. So what are your thoughts on the ending of this book and what this could potentially mean for the title and series?
Yeah, that's. I really like the ending conversation. Some of the stuff earlier maybe it was a little too. I hate to say Bendis-y, because, like I said, I'm not as familiar with him as a lot of other readers are. But like when Zatanna appears and Stephanie's like, "Wow, you're hot." Sorry, I thought that was like a little too cutesy and everything. But I actually didn't. Make the connection about, I'd forgotten in that detective issue where Bruce asked about the Tim's whereabouts and his fate and everything. I didn't make that connection, so that was a really good call. And yeah, that was a pretty clever callback, and having her be the one to introduce or reintroduce those repressed memories to him. So good call there, Rob, because I didn't catch that at all.
Well, and I just let it slip too that it's actually Stephanie that, as they're going to go run away, that she says, "I think we need to go back to fighting crime." That I think that's what ends up pulling Tim out of it. And then once Zatanna comes in, so I was just like scrolling back through, and I forgot that she has said that. I think we need to go stop some crime.
Yeah. Oh, it's that serious. I mean, she may just be saying it, be like, well, that's the only way either one of us really know how to, release our anger or deal with stuff like this. So it could have been something like that. But then Zatanna appears. Other than a couple of little, goofy bits of dialogue.
Right.
This is pretty cool, but I try honestly not to read too much ahead in solicits, so I'm not like deriding you for doing it or anything. I don't feel like you're spoiled.
Rob's a jerk.
No, I mean like synopses and everything. Like if someone points out, hey, Robin's getting a new name in, this issue, then I don't care if I find that out. But there's just so many comics out there that if I read it's for everything, I'd forget what happens where all the time. So if this is, kind of a Young Justice, I think of it kind of like the Adventures of the Super Sons book that's out right now. How that was originally, like the original, how the plot synopsis for that, originally sounded like Damian Wayne and John Kent were going to have like an adventure across the multiverse, just showing up in like different continuities and different Earths throughout DC history, with just like a bunch of different crazy adventures, like teaming up with the Legion of Superheroes in one issue, and then maybe Jonah Hex in another issue, and then go way far into the future and teaming up with the Robin and Superboy of the 853rd century, and then going back. I mean, that's kind of what it sounded like, but that's not how the story ended up at all. If this is kind of tying in with the multiple crises that there have been, and Young Justice comes up out of time and ripped across dimensions and everything, it would be interesting if they were the ones who kind of started patching up some of the holes with the multiverse and everything like that. But then one of the consequences could be that Tim is I think of in All-Star Superman, there's that scene where the I can't remember what they call themselves, but like a legion of Supermen come to get Superman to come and fight what they call like a chronovore, and it eats like 5 minutes of time. So you lose 5 minutes of your life, and in that time, Pa Kent died. But the whole point of the scene was that Superman disguised himself to come back so he could spend that 5 minutes with his father, while himself from his past was fighting the chronovore because Grant Morrison wrote this. Right. I wonder if it could be something like that. Is in fixing all of this, they couldn't come back to like certain points in time, like a fixed point. It just kind of drops them somewhere, and that's the consequence they have to suffer for saving everything. Robin had to sacrifice a part of his personal life or something like that. I wonder if that's how that's going to play out. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we had the opportunity to carve out some time and get through these books and hopefully get ourselves current. I feel like in a couple days we're going to get the next the next book out, and we'll have to carve out some more time. This has been a lot of fun going through both sides of Young Justice. And any more little tidbits that you have here on the issues that we covered?
No, I mean, other than Bendis will be Gleason will be missed. I think that especially John Timms, Enka, I'm not as familiar with, and his style was fine. I mean, they're not going to get Doc Shaner for this, unfortunately. I think that guy's way too busy working on like a million other things. Tim's penciling style works fine, even with some quibbles and a few things that maybe narratively speaking, I wish pacing was a little better, or some of the dialogue could be tightened up a bit. I'm enjoying the series. I'm really interested in seeing how it's going to be tying into the rest of DC continuity. And I think Bendis is still saying that we have yet to see the full lineup of Young Justice. So I'm curious to see. Maybe Connor Hawke will be a part of it after all.
Oh, man, we may get that Connor Hawke podcast in here. Just get him into our book, and I'll be happy. I'll be happy to have Connor Hawke running around.
But no, it's always fun talking to Rob, so I'm glad we're able to do this.
Yeah. Well, that's where we're going to end it for this episode, folks. Like always, you can find us on all the social media outlets. And on the behalf of Jay, this is Rob, and you've been listening to the BatmanUniverse.net. But hey, more importantly, you're listening to Everyone Loves